All right, hard yarners. Today, joined again by Big State. We had a great chat. But before we speak about what we spoke about, this episode is brought to you by alltradescover.com.au. If you're watching at home, you can see behind our wonderful guest there their logo. All Trades Cover, they will cover you if you are a tradie, if you're a big business, small business, medium level tradie, whatever it is, they will be able to cover you. The best part about All Trades Cover, they're on for another year, which is great. Thank you for being our major sponsor. But also, the people who work in that insurance company were tradies. Most of them were tradies in the past, so they have a great understanding of what you want to get covered. I don't know could you get coverage, do you reckon, for some of your
my activities are a bit unorthodox, but if anyone could do it, it would probably be All Trades.
Yeah,
maybe I need to hit them up.
I think so. We'll hit them up, but if you do hit them up, please drop our name, helps us. And also if you could I guess at the very least try and get a competitive quote by them, that would be very much appreciated from our behalf. This episode is also brought to you by Crafted Finance. Do you ever feel like you need a loan? Or we're talking a bit about the banking sector through this episode, but if you need a loan, a mortgage, a personal loan, car loan, really they're great with their assets and whatever you need when it comes to finance, they're going to be able to help you. There's a lot of details that I'd never really talk about when it comes to them and their knowledge and what they can help you with in regards to your super and whatnot. But what I want to do is I'm actually going to get Teddy on and we're going to do a bit of a Q&A.
Nice.
And get him to tell me about banking.
Yeah, I need to learn a bit more about it. I've been thinking I need to get a bit more financially responsible.
Exactly.
So they might be able to help.
But if you hit them up, drop our name. The links are in our show notes and our bio to hit up Crafted Finance. But basically, they're going to help you get the best version or the best interest rates or present them to you anyway. And then you can make the choice. It's always up to the person who wants to get the loan, but they're going to present you with the best options for the long term of the loan, so you pay the least amount of money back to the banks, because we don't want the banks getting more money, do we?
Certainly
Not the big dogs. But thank you so much for your support, guys. We do have a new sponsor coming on next month, and very excited to have them on board. But aside from that, we were joined, as said, by Big State. What did we talk about today, mate?
Well, Branchy, we talked about twin assaults on our freedom of speech in Australia. Mm-hmm. Two very, very concerning pieces of legislation, one at the federal level, one at the state level, which have, I think, quite a chilling impact on freedom of expression, particularly online. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate the chance to come and try and alert your listeners about these issues.
Always, mate. Yeah, mate, it was pretty topical. Obviously, the social media ban and these post and boast laws were very heavily discussed, as well as we talked a bit about environmental impacts. The mining and gas industries obviously always come up.
Big corporate interests who are taking advantage of us and who own our government.
Yep. And then obviously finding a way through it ourselves as individuals, how we can navigate these sorts of issues without being drawn too much into a bit of a mental battle of what can we do, because it can get a bit heavy sometimes. But, mate, as always, great to have you on. Great episode. And without further ado, let's get hard.
Welcome to Hard Yarns Podcast.
I am fucking fat.
Anything Chris White says, please disregard it.
5D is actually a state of being. It's a unity consciousness.
That was Hard Yarns with me, Frankie Rose. So I'm going to throw it over to your co-host,
Daniel Delby.
And Cameron Branch.
I would do this and then I'd gong.
Free in attendance for the millions listening at home. Let's get hard.
Beautiful. All right, mate. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Very good to have you.
Great to be here.
We had a sterling discussion last time.
We sure did. Yeah.
And I'm not sure it had the impact that we wanted in regards to the legislation that was put in place. But
yeah, look, I was, before the election, we were talking a lot about people looking for third-party alternatives beyond the major parties.
Yes.
And obviously, we just saw this absolute Labor landslide victory, which I was certainly pretty disappointed by. I imagine you might have been as well.
And was it in Freo,
Kate Hewlett,
Yeah.
she came within less than 1% of unseating Labor in what was previously a very safe Labor seat.
So
but
there's
not quite
levels of
there.
excitement that people are still wanting change.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing here is if you look at overall, again, more people than ever before in Australia voted for a minor party or an independent.
Yeah.
So the total major party vote
Yeah.
declined, but this time, Peter Dutton shut the bed so bad.
Oh my god, so badly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
As we expected as well. We said in there, yeah.
True, we did, yeah. So I guess what I didn't expect though was just, that so much of that major party vote would go to Labor, and so they were still able to maintain such a big majority. But I think it's a bit of a mirage. I think that long term, what came for Peter Dutton this time might come for the Labor Party next time around, because people are still going to be pissed off. I mean, some of the things we're going to talk about today, I think, are going to piss people off plenty. So
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I think what we're seeing is two sides of the same coin, regardless. So once Liberal get in, and they will at some point, there's going to be a demand for change, and the way the system's made, no minor parties getting in. So they're going to do the same thing. Maybe broadly speaking, there'll be a couple of little minor differences, but they're going to be favouring the same people.
I reckon what might happen long term is that we're just going to end up looking more like the European parliaments, where there's such a broader range of parties represented. It's more common to have coalitions and whatnot. I think the two major parties are on the decline, and we may as well talk about them as one thing. The uni party. You know, it's okay, this time most of it went to Labor, little went to Liberal, but what really changes?
Speaking to Basil, for example, he'll find little things
to
pick apart, but the Northwest Shelf project they agreed on, and you're like, well, okay, so and then even when questioning him, who I get along with Basil quite well, he seems he's quite nice, and he's open to hear your side of things. But even questioning him specifically on, maybe we could raise royalties or taxes slightly, and he's even me posing that concept of well, you're not going to scare them away, because what are they going to walk away from, as opposed to $1 billion of profit? Maybe now they only earn $800 million of profit. They're not walking away from the profit regardless. They're not going to be happy having to pay extra. And he was like, well, you don't want to scare them away. Well, no,
mate, they're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere. They're not walking away from that profit.
The iron ore is here.
And then I thought the response into, we don't want to take up the project ourselves as a state because we don't know how to do it properly. Well, this is the whole point of the state taking it. Then you would hire the people who have the knowledge. So that's not a response either. So
no,
I do, in hindsight, wish I pressed a little bit harder on some of those things.
Look, it can be hard, especially with Baz. I feel like he's a
smooth talker.
He's a pretty smooth talker. He's a pretty kind of charming guy. I mean, the one thing when I watched that, the one thing that just that I need to call out is the fact that he said that the mining industry doesn't give significant political donations in Western Australia because the data is real-time disclosed on the Electoral Commission's website, and anyone can log on there at any time and see that they are by sector the biggest donor to the two major parties. So he snuck that one in, and
not necessarily. It doesn't even have to be a donation. It can be this promise of the cushy job that we see, and then it's a handshake agreement, so there's no paper trail. And then you see them pop up in these beautiful jobs.
Yeah, correct. I think the donations are actually only the very tip of the iceberg, and they're the most visible bit. But the more insidious stuff is what we don't see, or we see later down the track when they've got their cushy seat in the boardroom.
Which probably leads us to where we want to take this episode, and in regards to the censorship of free speech, and probably calling out some of these big mining companies, these governments, and what they've been doing. We can start with the social media ban for under 16s, and obviously the misinformation bill that did get rejected, but that will consistently be put forward, and they'll just change some of the minor details, but broadly speaking, to be the same thing. What we're seeing there is probably, for me, and I alluded to you before the podcast, is it's more about protecting them than protecting the under 16-year-olds. great idea to protect the 16-year-old from social media because I think we all agree that social media is a terrible thing. Like I'm guilty of being stuck in it sometimes. That comparison, looking at others, the thief of joy, the things it would do to people who have lesser or are in more tough conditions, mental health wise and stuff like that. It's not going to be great, bullying, all these factors. We get it.
Yeah.
But let's not pretend that the government really cares. And even if they do, they're not going to leverage it to use for their own benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think you're right. Everyone knows social media can be terrible. Like, I often find myself addicted to it, scrolling too much. Like, it's not good for my mental state. I used to be a school teacher. When I taught kids, I saw how they were impacted by social media. Like, we all agree social media has massive problems and is causing massive problems in the world. The way to go about solving that, I don't think, is to do whatever they're trying to do, which I see as a serious assault on freedom of speech. And I think freedom of speech is under assault through this legislation and also through some West Australian legislation we'll talk about in a bit. But I think, young people actually do have a right to express themselves in a healthy way and to find information on social media. Like, at the end of the day, social media has decentralized the media. The media used to be fully dominated by corporate actors and then as propaganda instruments for governments. And now the playing field is open. And that's one good thing about the internet and social media, right? Is that the media now is distributed and people like yourself and I can actually sit here and have this conversation, which before the internet, they're not putting us on the radio, right? Like,
yes. And then Albanese made the claim that, back before social media, you had the news outlets and you knew that wasn't misinformation. And that's an absurd assertion in the first place.
The bloke needs to read a history book if he thinks that
exactly.
no media outlet has ever engaged in misinformation.
Yeah, ridiculous. And also, side note to that, the people that were exempt from the rules of misinformation bill were the mainstream media and the governments.
Yeah. Handy. Yeah.
Very handy. Very handy. So if they're not guilty of spreading misinformation themselves, why are they exempt from the rules?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think there's just so many problems with this legislation. Another, I think, is that the kids are going to find ways around it instantly. Like, I'm sure they've already worked it out.
Yeah.
You use your VPN, you print out a photo of an old person's face and you hold it up to the camera. I think in the UK, someone was telling me people are just like uploading SpongeBob's driver's license and that's getting accepted.
Mate, so this is the biggest concern for me in regards to where I see it going is this idea of like, no, you don't need digital ID. You can present your driver's license. You can use a credit card. You can use any number of other ways to identify yourself and your age. This age assurance is as opposed to age verification. This fucking wording is absurd. But there are other ways. And you're like, okay, well, look, I could do this facial recognition for my age. And like, to be honest, I'm on here all the time. So if they wanted my facial recognition, they've got it.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it. The concern is that kids are going to get around this no matter what.
No matter what. Yeah.
And then they're eventually going to say, well, look, we tried other ways. The only way that we can 100% confirm that this is going to work is a digital identification because we know it works. So, look, it's voluntary. You don't have to get the digital identity, but unfortunately you're going to surrender your rights to be able to use social media. Exactly like what they did with the jab. You don't have to get vaccinated. That is your right to choose, but you will surrender your right to go into this restaurant. You will surrender your right to go into this pub. You will surrender your right to be a part of functioning society. If that's not coercion, which is what we're going to see here, that is the biggest concern because why are they coercing it? Why are they putting us in a situation where they can do that?
Yeah, look, I think that's a plausible scenario that this leads to digital ID. But even if it doesn't, we're still giving over more of our information to these big tech platforms. So even if it doesn't go that far, I think with the legislation as it is, there are privacy concerns. Like these big tech platforms know enough about us already. Yeah, we don't need to be handing them over facial ID or bank cards or mobile phone accounts or whatever. I mean, the other thing is that we know that these social media platforms give data over to law enforcement all the time whenever they ask for it. That's
Yeah.
just part of what they do in their business.
Yeah.
I was reading the other day, apparently it's in the terms and conditions of ChatGPT that they will hand over anything you've said to ChatGPT to law enforcement if they come knocking. That can be used to prosecute you. So we're giving so much information already to these platforms, which is scary in and of itself. I don't think the government should be mandating that we give more and more and more. And as you say, where's the end point? Where does this lead to?
Yeah, well, the argument in response to that would be, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what does it matter?
Well, the definition of wrong can change depending on who's in government.
Exactly,
So-
and that's the answer there. Because what if we are to discuss something openly within this podcast, and then they say, "Well, we don't want you discussing that. That's what we deem as to be misinformation." They're trying to put it all together: this misinformation bill, this digital ID, the social media ban, the age assurance. It all, I guess, comes to a point of centralized control and power.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it all happens at the same time, but you baby step, you tippy toe, little bits and pieces. Now, maybe I'm going a bit more down the conspiratorial side of things. I guess the worst case scenario, the what would you call it? The post I can't think of the word, totalitarian government style approach. Now, maybe that's not a reality. Maybe that is just like you're thinking worst case scenario. But regardless, you've brought up the other point of your information, your personal information also can be hacked. And that's a concern for me.
Yeah. And I think we've just got to remember, like, those worst case scenarios have happened throughout history at various points.
Yeah.
Whether we're on the path to that or not, like, we don't know, but it's possible. And I think governments often make laws and they'll say, oh, we don't intend to use the law in this way or that way. But how do you know that the bloke who comes after you isn't going to have a different intention?
Yeah, that's
correct. It's about what the law enables you to do. I think in this instance, with the social media ban, it doesn't do what it's setting out to do. It doesn't protect kids. And it also creates all these other risks in terms of privacy, identity, implications for freedom of speech. I think it's part of an overall trend in Australian society that we have that is eroding our rights to freedom of expression.
Do you think they're also being lazy instead of focusing on potentially education? Just putting a Band-Aid on.
It's an easy solution, right?
Yeah,
it's an easy solution.
Let's just rid them of the information itself.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's a solution that puts the burden on the individuals rather than putting the burden on the tech platforms, the big, powerful, wealthy companies.
Yeah.
Again and again, we see this dynamic, right? There are things that I'm sure could be done to better regulate these tech companies, put limits on them in terms of data, in terms of the way that their products impact their users, in terms of how young users are protected. Like, that's all possible, I'm sure. I'm sure there's experts out there who know what those things are.
Yeah, most definitely.
But it's hard, right? Albo doesn't want to take on Google and Meta and those companies, arguably he has to some degree here, but he wouldn't want to pick a big fight with them.
No.
Much easier to put it onto the user. And I think for a lot of people out there, like, parents probably are frustrated with their kids on social media all the time. So they hear the idea and they think, oh, yeah, cool, that's a good idea. But I think once they realize how difficult it's going to be to implement and also how it's going to impact them, they might be having second thoughts.
Well, this is a probably unrelated topic, but to the same degree. This is as almost absurd as removing machetes from this machete ban that they're putting on. Instead of addressing the cause and the source of the machete attacks and the problems that we're seeing, let's just remove the item.
Yeah.
And they're asking them to do that voluntarily, because I know exactly what I would do if I was a criminal willing to use a machete. I'd be going, oh, they're illegal now. I better give it up. It's absurd. So I think that's what we're seeing here as well. It's just a Band-Aid that they're trying to look like they're doing something, and at the same time they're able to leverage it for their own benefit.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you look at history, like prohibition, banning things often doesn't work.
No.
1920s, United States, prohibition of alcohol didn't work at all. It led to
In
more
fact, it made it
alcohol.
worse, and more dangerous ways of sourcing that alcohol.
Exactly, yeah.
It led to the boosting of cartels and the
Yeah.
mafia and all these sorts of things. So
Yeah.
there's going to be other ways that people try to get around. There's going to
Yeah.
be illegal ways of sourcing identification, and then that
Yeah.
leads to other things like, well, if they've got this fake ID, maybe they can now get into pubs. And
Yeah.
that's just one little way they could do it, but it will result in worse things. And I often use this analogy in regards to sports. Like any sporting team, if you put in a new law or a new rule in the game, the coach will instantly try to figure a way to get around it to
Yeah.
slow up their defense or whatever they want to try and achieve.
Yeah.
It's the same in society. You got young kids, you try and stop them from doing something, they're going to try and find loopholes. They're going to try and get around it. I tried telling my daughter, don't fucking go in the pantry. What do you think she's going to do?
Yeah.
First thing she's going to do is go in the pantry.
Yeah.
I think it's taking away our ability to discern, our ability to parent, our children's ability to discern and learn what is true and what is not true, using their own, I guess, values and morals that we can teach them as parents. It's really the state trying to parent for us. It's the state trying to take control of our choices.
Yeah.
And any time I don't remember a time in history where that's been a good thing.
Yeah, no. And I mean, again, like if Albo, like I just don't trust that the intentions are good here, because if the intention was to protect the children of Australia, well, how about, to bring it back to my favourite issue, how about you tax the gas companies properly and then you use that for better healthcare, better education, better things that we all need, including on how to, not get addicted to social media.
Has he ever been posed that question up front in person, do you think?
I mean, I asked him about it in person and he just ignored me.
I remember
walking
you
down
got
the street.
escorted
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
So maybe someone more credible needs to ask him. But for some reason,
No.
journalists don't.
We'll leave it for the real journalists.
Exactly. Well, they never quite get there. Is the issue.
Exactly. So, which is why we need, I guess, independent journalists. This is why they're trying to get rid of, independent journalists, social media, people. And yes, there is misinformation and disinformation put out there at times, of course. But this is why they want that, because the mainstream media, Channel 9, Channel 10, or whoever it is, Kerry Stokes, they're not going to let their reporters ask those questions.
Yeah.
And even if they do, they bury the story.
And they want a monopoly on the disinformation, the misinformation. They want to be the only ones who can do it. So
Yes.
Kerry Stokes can come and tell you how great the gas industry is for WA, not mentioning the fact that he owns a bloody gas company and he owns $100 million of Woodside shares.
Oh, no, there's no conflict of interest there, yeah.
Exactly. And yet suddenly when, other people are saying things on social media, they're held to such a high standard. I mean, look, the other thing I think, given the current events and current context, I think the other thing about Albo and caring for children is, if he really wanted to protect children, you'd think he'd maybe be doing something about what's going on in Palestine right now. That's where I come to, is that we've got children being starved and killed over there right now, and he still won't sanction Israel. I mean, that's to bring it, I guess, to a whole other level.
Yeah, it's
of
another
discussion,
level, but there's so many other versions of that exact thing happening. Even child trafficking around the world, I think it's 500 million, I think,
Right.
or 500,000. I don't want to conflate the numbers, but it's
yeah.
500 million
That's
or
a lot,
500,000
yeah.
kids a year get circulated into child trafficking and sex rings. That's another thing. Like, if you cared about children, you'd be putting a shitload of effort into that.
Yeah.
Why aren't we seeing Sydney Harbour Bridge shut down for that? That's not. I'm not saying what they did is average. I think it's great. Like, they're standing up for something, but why aren't we seeing it for that as well? There's so many other avenues. This is like they're picking the topic of the moment and then using it to, I guess, divide as well. Tribalism, to pick a size, vote for us for this reason. And also what I'm seeing a lot is, I feel like a lot of these politicians, we all make mistakes as well. And some of these politicians, I think, realise they've made mistakes, but if they admit that fault, they're going to lose their job. And I think that's pretty bad that would be the situation. Sometimes you should say, well, look, if you've done something illegal, you need to lose your job. If you've gone and done something shady, you've got to lose your job. But if some of these politicians or people in power do make errors, we need to sometimes have a bit of understanding. And if they hold accountability to that and say, fuck, I fucked up, we need to reverse this. We need to sort this.
It'd be great.
I think
Yeah.
it would be great, but I
Yeah.
don't think we see it because their ego gets
No.
in the way, their fear of their job and their position that they work for gets in the way, and then they double down on the issue. And I see that environmentally. There's a local issue with the water treatment plants going out off Ocean Reef, which I want to do a full episode on that with a couple of people who are right into it. But a perfect example is the water minister says, no, we trust the science. Well, you're not believing what we're seeing in person. You're not believing the what we had. It was an algal bloom 3 months after construction, and they blamed it on stagnant water instead of the construction of this new jetty, this boat harbour that they're trying to do. That instead of considering the fact that potentially this water treatment plant needs to be extended out another 1,500 metres to be able to make sure it is diluting well enough and not coming up onto our beaches. We're not getting tampons and toilet paper and needles and it's slime and sludge and algae washing up onto one of what was the most beautiful beaches in WA. You are turning a blind eye. You are trusting the science. No, you're not. You're just doubling down on something that you know could cost you your job instead of going, my job is to fix this problem. Fuck, we've made a mistake. I apologise. We need to extend this. Let's double down.
And people would respect that.
I
people
think so.
would have quite a lot of respect for that. But I think, sadly, the defining trait that I see in both federal Labor government and the state Labor government is arrogance.
Yeah.
I think that's what we've seen with this
we're right.
legislation.
We're right. Yeah.
They just don't want to back down, and they want to just always reassert themselves in a way that is like transparently just arrogant. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to admit fault, I think, is quite an admirable trait. Like, if you were to go, look, we've made some terrible errors here. Look at what it's resulted in. Don't fire me. I'll fix it. We see the problems. And then what happens is they double down. And then the people see it, and then nothing gets done about it. No inquiries, no nothing. And then every now and then you get someone will be held accountable, but it's too late at the end. Why can't we stop these issues as we see them unfolding?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But then, so obviously it's a concern, but to come at it from a devil's advocate point of view, what if this is just, we are protecting the children because it is a problem? Let's come at it from that point of view. And I tried thinking about this the other day, like as a father. Of course, I want my child protected. It just comes back to the point of like, well, that's my responsibility as a parent to teach her.
Exactly.
So do you see a positive for this in a way that it can be looked at it from the devil's advocate point of view, if there is a positive?
I mean, honestly, I really don't. I think like maybe it's well-intentioned. I'm not sure I even believe that, but maybe it's well-intentioned. But if it is, I reckon there's got to be better ways of solving this problem.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see it as being effective, and I think it's dangerous. So I can't see much good coming of it. I mean, maybe like what Albo says is like, well, it's like banning alcohol for under 18s. Some of them will get around it, but it'll help. Maybe there might be some kids out there who benefit from this who might otherwise be getting harmed on social media, but I kind of doubt it. And as you say, like, why aren't we trusting parents to make those decisions? Because also what's right for one kid isn't going to be the same as what's right for another kid. Some kids start businesses on social media when they're teenagers, and they have great success with that, and it sets them up for their careers.
Entrepreneurs So what are they suggesting is harming people? Have you looked into this?
I don't know if they've got particularly specific about it. I mean, they've talked about how there's potential for abuse and bullying on social media, which we know is true.
Yep.
There's potential for kind of antisocial harms, which we know is true. But again, I just think there's got to be better ways to address those issues that don't just throw out all the kind of benefits that social media can bring as well. And I do just think like, they're kind of scared. And I think governments around the world are kind of scared, like all the talk in the US of banning TikTok. It's no coincidence, I don't think, that TikTok was often used as a platform for young people to criticize the government on all kinds of issues. I think that they're trying to shut down dissent. They like the old world where they had, the newspaper and 4 TV stations, and they could manage their relationships there. They don't like this new world where suddenly more people have a voice and more people can can stand up and say what they're thinking, it's a threat to them. And I think it is. And I think there's nothing they can really do about it. They can't fight it. It does just feel like a Band-Aid solution. Yeah. I think another thing that Albo should remember is that some kids who are 15 now, if my maths is right, they're going to be voting in the next federal election. Yeah. So some of the kids who might be impacted by this ban in the next election are going to be the ones to decide on his future. I think he'd do pretty well to remember.
Well, very interesting what's going to happen in the future. And I don't know where it lies, but if I was to predict, I would feel like the laws would be escalated just prior to an election.
It wouldn't be surprising, right?
Yeah. That's just that's a gut feel. That's not saying that's what's going to happen, but I would suggest just prior, this isn't quite working. We're actually going to have to clamp down on a little harder. Yeah, you're going to require a specific ID.
And that's why we need scrutiny on it, and we need to have people talking about it and looking at it, because we want to try and avoid these worst case scenarios, which I think, are plausible.
Yeah. What would your concerns be about like your driver's license being used for identification? Anything?
I mean, I don't want my driver's license. I don't want anyone who doesn't need it to have my driver's license. They can then use that for all kinds of things. So whether it's open to hacking or whether it's just the platforms knowing where I live and what my birth date is and what my signature is, it's just like that is my personal information.
Yeah.
And I don't want it distributed. I mean, I think another great thing about social media has been also that at times it can be anonymous. Like, you and I are both online as ourselves.
Yes.
But for a lot of people, for whatever reason, they can't do that. They're able to go and have a voice anonymously and express themselves. And some people might think, oh, well, that's cowardly or whatever. But I actually think it's quite a valuable thing. And it's one of the great things that the internet has given us is this increase in freedom of expression, because all of a sudden it doesn't have to be tied to who you are in your day-to-day life. So that also worries me that, that's not going to be possible anymore. And also then that means that it's going to be easier for the platforms and for governments, law enforcement to know who's posting what. And I think there are examples where, like, I don't think the internet should be anything goes. Obviously, there are things that are against the law that should be against the law that the internet can enable, like quite horrific things.
Yeah, you don't want to see a murder on Facebook.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about ordinary speech being restricted for ordinary Australians.
Yeah. Which I guess leads into something that you've alluded to. You've alerted me to recently, and I was, to be fair, totally unaware of this. And that's probably the most concerning part. So do you want to explain something that's been almost snuck under our noses?
Yeah, well, this came across my desk only very recently, and I was deeply concerned because I see this as perhaps actually an even greater infringement on the rights to freedom of expression, freedom of assembly than the social media ban. So this is new legislation that the WA government is putting forward, which is called the Post and Boast Bill, an amendment to the Criminal Code. This is a bill that is going to create a new offence in Western Australia, an offence of disseminating material about particular offending conduct. What the government say this is designed to do is this is meant to stop people doing crimes like stealing cars or whatever, and then posting it on TikTok and doing it for clout, online clout.
Yeah.
And they're trying to crack down on that.
Which, given that explanation, you would say, okay, yep.
Fairly reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Fairly reasonable thing to do. It's punishable by 3 years in jail. Now, other states have versions of this law, but they're much more constrained in the offences covered than the offences covered under the bill in WA. So the offences covered under the bill in WA, I've got a list here. They might include unlawful assembly, trespass, behaving in a disorderly manner in public, which can include just through swearing, being masked with intent to commit a crime. So these are all, some of these are some of the lowest level crimes that we have in our criminal code.
Yeah, and who's to discern what is like a peaceful protest, or because
exactly
the way that they frame it is however they want it to be.
Exactly. So unlawful assembly is an act where 3 or more people with a common purpose act in a way that causes those around them to fear that they will disturb the peace. Now, that could be very easily applied to many protests that I've seen.
That could be a podcast.
I mean, potentially.
There's 3 people on a podcast.
Potentially. I think it might have to be in public. But if we were podcasting in public, yeah. So, yeah, disorderly conduct can just include swearing around in the street. So what this offence does is it makes it illegal for anyone to electronically disseminate footage of someone doing these offences with the purpose of glorifying them or celebrating them. So I'll give you some examples of things that could be covered under this.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I've spoken to lawyers about this, and this is my reading of the law. A protest where people are yelling, that could be seen as a disorderly conduct in public. Fuck. A street artist putting up a mural on a building that's not their building could be seen as criminal damage, covered under the offence. So if you post a video of a street artist doing a mural, Banksy putting up some artwork, that could be covered under this.
That's the person who posts.
The person who posts. So it's not the person doing the act, it's the person who posts who is up for 3 years in jail. So if I post to my social media something that I see on the street and I say, hey, look at this, this is cool.
Yeah.
I'm the one who could be put in jail for 3 years.
I could be covering the protests that I see that are happening.
Yeah.
If they say that this is being used to incite violence.
That's right. If they think that you're kind of glorifying or encouraging others to do the same thing, then it can fall under the act. Now, there is a carve out for journalism, but then it's open to the courts to decide what is and isn't journalism. So that also creates pretty interesting questions in this age where,
what is and what isn't journalism.
Exactly. That line is becoming more and more blurry all the time.
Yeah.
Even so, the crime doesn't even have to have happened in WA. So it could be a crime that's happened in the eastern states.
Yeah.
It could be a crime that's happened in the UK. So say, for example, recently in the UK, there were pro-Palestine protests that were deemed illegal.
Yeah.
That potentially could fall under this act.
Wow.
Say, even if there was a fight in a footy game.
Yeah.
That could be deemed assault, right?
Yeah.
That could fall under the legal definition of assault.
So the blurry lines could almost go anywhere.
It's very, very blurry lines. Now, the governments say this is to crack down on crime, youth crime. My fear that this is a way to get anti-protest legislation in through the back door. So I think that all people who've protested in Western Australia, all people who've shared footage of protests in Western Australia, all people who've seen footage of protesters and thought, good on them, all of those people should be outraged by this law. Whether you are a climate radical, Extinction Rebellion, glue yourself to anything you see, whether you're that kind of guy, whether you're a farmer who is made good money from the live sheep export trade and wants to keep that industry going.
Yeah.
Those two groups of people probably hate each other, I'd imagine. They should both be outraged by this law because it has the ability to impact on both of their activities and both of their democratic rights to freedom of assembly and freedom of speech. So I'm deeply, deeply concerned by this, and I think that people in Western Australia need to express that because there's a risk that this is going to get through and then suddenly start being enforced. I think, if you do an illegal protest, it's fair enough that you accept the consequences of the law. That's kind of the whole point, right? If you're driven by a cause to do something illegal, you might get arrested and charged, and that's fair enough. But if you share footage of an illegal protest, you haven't done anything illegal.
Well, this is an example is through COVID, and I can't recall what your opinions were on the lockdowns and whatnot, but there was big protests against them. Yeah. And I remember going to one out of interest. I was obviously vocally against lockdowns, but I didn't go to protest. I went to speak to the people. Me and Corey White, we did some vox pops and talking to the people on the streets. And I remember when we were there, the next day, no coverage at all on the news. There was one article in the newspaper that said there was maybe 10,000 people there when there was quite clearly, 30, 40, 50,000 people who were very vocally opposed to lockdowns. Yeah. And So that would mean if I was to share my footage of saying, well, this is what's happening there,
Yeah.
I could be in trouble. And this is, again,
I
where
think that could very easily fall under the definitions of this law.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think, again, that should be a concern to everyone. We shouldn't be thinking here about where we fall on the particular issues. It should be, no, we live in a democratic society. One of the cornerstones of that is freedom of assembly and freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And that is under attack.
And now I guess like a recent example would be, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, floating the drone over, having a look at that, and someone saying, how good is this? People standing up for people dying in Gaza.
Yeah.
Okay, which is probably a nice thing to suggest.
Yeah.
But that could be used as...
Potentially, if that's deemed an unlawful gathering, yeah. I mean, the other weird thing here is that the offence doesn't even have to have been proven in court or convicted for this law to apply. So the person doing the thing might not even get charged, but you can still be charged under the post and post legislation. I think I have spoken to lawyers about this, and they've said to me, it's really bad legislation. It's just written in a really sloppy way. It's really unclear. There could be issues with the constitutionality of it here. But B, they've also said that they are concerned by the implications here for those rights that we have in Australia.
Who's putting this forward?
So this has been put forward by the new Attorney General, Dr. Tony Butty. And from what I understand, it could go before the Parliament as early as next week.
Fuck.
Yep.
Yeah. So but how do we as people with zero knowledge of this coming forward, how do we reach out and say, I've heard about this post and post? Has there been any coverage of this at all?
There's been
I was unaware.
very little. Yeah, there's been very little. I think hopefully there will be more to come. I mean, I'd like to see a big, massive protest at Parliament House, bringing together, all kinds of people who are concerned about this. I think that would be a good thing. I think that, individuals, groups should be contacting the Attorney General, Tony Butty, contacting his office. People involved in, as I say, Keep the Sheep should be contacting him. Extinction Rebellion should be contacting him. People concerned about COVID lockdowns, people protesting on anything, they should be contacting him and getting in touch and saying, "Hey, our activities can be impacted by this." And I mean, look, it's
your local members
as well. I think leverage whatever you can, and doing it together is stronger. So I think that if groups can band together, send open letters, do whatever, I think that would be really, really useful. I guess part of the reason I wanted to come on here today was to sound the alarm a little bit and say, hey, this is coming.
Well, certainly this is the platform to do it. We've got a large following in Perth, so that's good. So does this though, like, would this almost set up as a template for something that could be enforced in other states and countries?
Well, the crazy thing about this is that other states have these laws already, but they're so much more limited in scope, which is what makes me think that this is just like a backdooring, perhaps, of kind of anti-protest legislation. I've got the information here. So in Victoria, it's only the person who did the offence who is caught under the law. So it's like if I do it and I post it, then I can be found guilty.
Okay.
But it is not protest-related offences. It's motor vehicle theft, robbery, armed robbery, burglary, home invasion, carjacking. So, it's
specific, like
very
the things,
specific crimes.
So the things that it's meant to be used for.
Yeah.
Don't go and carjack someone, film it, and then go, clout.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing here, though, that I do think is that, like, if you are willing to steal a car, that is quite a serious offence. I don't know if this extra offence is going to make you think, maybe I won't steal that car. So I'm not even sure it really works on that level, especially because I think that this is probably mostly going to be children who are going to be caught up in this legislation, and maybe those children, if they're reckless enough to steal a car and drive around, probably the extra penalty for posting's probably not going to deter them. But anyway, putting aside, there may be issues there around, is it actually useful for stopping these kind of crimes? We'd want to talk to lawyers and see how it's worked in other jurisdictions. But putting aside that side of it, I just do think that in terms of freedom of expression, that this is outrageous. We in Australia, our right to freedom of expression is an implied right to freedom of expression. It's not like America where we have a Bill of Rights, but it is something that is in our common law, that is implied in our constitution, is that, you know, we live in a free, open, democratic society, and we should be able to have that freedom of speech and that freedom of assembly. Yeah.
What do you think it says about the state of, well, the world, but the state of Australia and the way it's sinking and its almost rebellion? I feel like COVID was in so many ways that sort of awakening moment for a lot of people that realised their rights can be stolen like that. Their freedom of expression, their freedom of choice, and albeit with a health-related vaccination and thinking of others, there are so many other concepts and other ways that this can be implemented, and we're starting to see it, and people are wise to it, and they call it out. But I feel like over the last 20 or 30 years, it's been happening, and we've just been blindly going along with it because there was no social media. There was a very small amount of independent journalists that didn't have the wide-ranging reach, and what we were seeing was the news. What we were seeing was the monopolised media. Yeah. Really. Yeah. So what do you think it says about the population and what we are seeing now? Like, because these last two issues, and I'd say it'd be very similar on the Post and Boast, but the social media ban seems largely, this is one of the first ones I've seen largely, I feel like it's opposed by, not everyone, but I'd say there'd be a majority of people who oppose this as opposed to the other way around, or a 50-50 split.
I'd be interested to see polling on that, because I do remember when the idea first came up, it was widely supported in the polling that I saw. So I'd be curious to see if that's changed. I sense it has definitely...
It's definitely swung to a point. Yeah. I don't feel like it's like it's not like a 70-30 or... Yeah. But I feel like there is more people who go... Like, we see what you're doing. Yeah.
I mean, I think that, in the UK at the moment as well, there's also online legislation, which I'm not as across, which has come into place, which is, I think, even more kind of restrictive than what we're seeing here. So I think online rights and freedoms are very much under attack. I think the internet is becoming a less free place than it once was. And I think... You know, the internet has been a part of all kinds of social movements and social uprisings and social change and political change over the last few decades. And perhaps this is in large part a response to that. I mean, I will say as well, I think history shows that when you repress people, their rights to protest, their rights to freedom of expression, it often backfires and backfires badly. You know, there are examples like 1963, Birmingham, United States, Civil Rights March for Children, which was where there were a bunch of school children who marched down a street in opposition to segregation. The police set dogs on them, beat them with batons, set fire hoses on them. These were like young kids, 12 years old or whatever. But that was the crystallizing moment for the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement in the US wouldn't have taken off in the way it did without that moment, because it really backfired. People saw it, punters saw it, and they thought, well, hang on a second. I'm not on the side of the guys who are beating up kids and setting dogs on them. Like, this is unreasonable. This is ridiculous. So that's, I think, quite a famous example of where trying to repress a protest actually backfires. But I think we actually saw that as well last weekend. If the cops hadn't have tried to ban that march across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, there's no way there would have been however many 100,000 people there were there. Yeah. It was the fact that they tried to repress it that made people say, well, hang on a second, I'm not going along with that. That's no good. Yeah. I'm going to the march.
And that's a perfect example. As soon as you try to stop something, it forces people into action.
Yeah, and same thing with the COVID. Yeah, that the same dynamic applied there. Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. If you gave people the option, go, hey, here's this option. It's all good. You don't have to have it, but here's an option. Yeah, you probably would have had more uptake or easier or less restrictive uptake.
Because you treat people like adults and you give them the evidence and you let them make up the decision instead of coming in as the kind of nanny state and saying you must do this, you must do that. Yeah, I think that was the big mistake that governments around the world made with COVID, is that they just took such a such a stern, forceful approach when it would have been much better to treat people like adults and yeah, I think your vaccine uptake probably would have been similar, and also like not shut down concerns and treat them as instantly unvalid, recognize that people do have valid concerns and talk through those things rather than shutting out the conversation. Like, I think just in general, governments try and shut shit down. It will often backfire on them. And I think that might happen long term in the examples that we are talking about.
Yeah.
People will find ways around these bans. People will get used to, like, it kind of just criminalizes ordinary behavior as well, right? Like, even back to the ban for kids, like, you're going to have 10-year-old kids for the first time in their life seeking out to do something illegal because they want to go on social media. Like, it creates this kind of weird situation. Yeah.
100%. I think one thing I've been noticing, it's bleeding into a heap of other areas as well. You see things like the banking sector. You go to withdraw cash. What are you taking this money out for? None of your business. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Even the fact that it costs me money to take my cash out at a teller, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
I didn't even realize I was paying. So what a good thing. I've just come back from Europe, obviously.
Yeah.
So I just left my bank account. We had a savings pot, the separate card. So I just left everything in my bank. Nothing. Nothing coming in, nothing going out. It's just like, this is what it is. So it was a great way to audit what was going out. Looking at all of these bills and fucking all these streaming services and subscriptions, things that you've forgotten that you're paying for. You're like, holy fuck, I've been paying. Yeah. Patreon, stay on board, please. But
these guys are getting value.
Exactly. So, but all these things. And then one thing I started seeing, I was like, what's that account fee? An account fee.
Yeah,
And I was like, why am I getting these account fees?
Yeah.
And so I've called up and I was paying, it's nothing. It's $10 a month for this account that I've had for up to, I don't know, how long? Decades. Fucking, I've had it for quite a while. I've been paying $10 a month. Didn't even realise. And you know what? They refunded me 5 months worth of fees back.
Yeah, right.
So thanks.
Oh, cool.
Thanks, Combank.
Yeah.
But the fact is they've been taking all this money off me for having an account that they are then taking 90% of that money that I have in that bank and then loaning it out to someone, earning money off that interest and then returning it back to me when I want to take it out and then using someone else's money. So
I think with the banks, as with the casinos, the house always wins.
It's just absurd. And then, to charge me money to take my money out and then to ask me what I am using that money for. I know I said this to Grace yesterday, my partner. I said, if I get asked, if I went to go out, take a big, large chunk of money out, I'm going on a trip over to Bali or whatever, and I was asked, I'd say, I'm going to get a dick enlargement. I don't like, what business is it of yours? If I gave that, would they then say, if I gave that as a response, they clearly know I'm taking the piss there because I don't know. If I gave that as a response, are they going to say, well, no, that's not a serious response. We need a real response or we're not going to give you your money? Are they going to hold that up? Probably more than likely. So, and it's what we've seen in the past. And again, it's this thing of your information, your privacy is no longer your privacy. It's no longer your business.
Yeah. I once had a very scary 2 days where my bank accounts all got frozen at the request of the WA Police, which was very scary, and then got unfrozen again without any real communication related to kind of, my speaking out against the gas industry, but that's a whole other story.
But look, this is another concern. Obviously, like we talk about like digital identification, the long-term implications potentially being attached to a digital currency, and if you're not keeping up with your social credit, they're going to put in these sorts of things in place. But the argument is they can already do that. Yeah. Which you can see. They've frozen all your bank accounts. Yeah. My concern is less that and more spending caps. Yeah. Or you have to spend this amount of money in Australia by this date or it's going to be null and void as it becomes a digital currency, which inevitably it will become a digital currency system.
It's very rare now that most people would deal with cash at all, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of,
so that concern for me is long term. Okay, I've saved up 10 grand. I've got 10 grand of savings, and then the bank, and I'm going on a trip to Bali, and then they say, no, you're not allowed to spend that in Bali. That's to be spent in Australia because we need it for our GDP. We need that going through our economy. So no, that is limited to where you can spend it. That's got a geolocation on it. That's my concern for long term. Now I know that is long term thinking, but tap and pay.
Yeah.
4 years ago, I don't think I even entertained the thought of tap and pay. Now every person's got tap and pay.
Yeah, just on the phone. Yeah, don't
exactly.
carry a bank card
so
anymore.
this is the thing, like an idea and a concern very quickly becomes the norm.
And a lot of this is enabled by technology, right? And it does concern me just the level of like the surveillance culture that we live in on so many different levels. We create so much data as we go through our lives online that like to think about what Google knows about me is honestly scary. Like I've been using Google since I was like, 12 years old, and the amount of data that they would have collected in that time, like they would know me better than I know myself.
Mate, the joke has been made. Would you like someone to see your Google search history or give up your firstborn child? How far back are we going?
Yeah.
So, this is, it's...
But even just like, everything with the banks being online, the banks being willing to hand over transaction history to law enforcement, even like the number plate scanning cameras that are around Perth now. I don't know if you've noticed, but those have just absolutely proliferated since COVID. COVID was when I first started noticing them coming in a lot. Like they were around, but they are everywhere now.
Yeah, I used to think I thought they were just speed cameras. But no.
Yeah.
They're just literally checking who's driving where.
Yeah. So, so again, law enforcement can see, Branchy did today. He went here, then he went to the coffee shop, and then he went to do the school pickup, and then he went home. Like, and people will say, well, why are you worried about them watching that when you haven't done anything wrong? But again, it comes back to how do you put that much trust in that what the government deems right and wrong is never going to change and is always going to reflect what is actually right and wrong? Because we know throughout history there are countless examples of governments being in the wrong and criminalising things that are right. So
why are we obsessed with this idea that we are the good guys? Our governments are the good guys.
I mean, it makes us feel good, right?
Doesn't it?
It makes us kind of be able to sleep good at night to feel like,
I'm not suggesting for a second that like Hitler or the Nazis were the good guys, but
no, they clearly weren't.
But there's situations in the world, and there are moments in time where we can look back and go, no, we were the bad guys. Yeah. But we've been told we were the good guys.
I mean, America is the only country to ever drop atomic bombs on innocent populations. Like, they're the only country who's ever actually done that.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and America, as much as obviously I think that they are the world leader in a lot of ways, they're also, I don't want to say it's America because it's not the people. The people are very different.
Yeah.
But the governments and the people who have leverage over those governments are very clearly there to keep their corporate masters happy. And if that means ending a few lives or destabilizing a country that was going against the banking system or whatever it is, they'll just do their bidding. And that's really, they are the bad guys.
I mean, every American president in our lifetime could be found guilty of war crimes under international law.
Exactly.
I think there's also this temptation that we have to look at our current time and think, in the past, bad things happened, but we've worked it all out now. But why would now, there's always going to be good things and bad things happening in societies. I think it's up to us to try and do as much good as we can, but it's not like these problems ever get solved. We've always got to be alert and on the lookout. And like, democracy is a fragile thing. We've got to defend it. Rights to free speech, that's a fragile thing. We've got to defend it.
Do you think there's a level of I guess awareness that we can attain to a point where it's just damaging to us? Like having awareness of these issues and understanding that they're happening. That's one thing, but they can impact us mentally, like health-wise. Like if you're constantly, I walked around the lake yesterday chatting and with my partner, and the conversation just went from and very, very rarely do we talk about these sorts of things. This is a podcast only thing for me normally.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about a few of the injustices in the world, several things that we've mentioned today, and she just looked at me and said, "Wow, the world is what's happening with the world?" And then it made me just think, well, is there anything you can do about it by having these concerns, or can we just focus on ourselves and being the best version and the best, most, I guess the highest, most kind person that we possibly can be? And but then does that mean you leave yourself open to being completely oppressed by whoever's in charge? And I don't know what the answer is.
I think it's hard, right? I think that pure awareness on its own, you can definitely have too much of that. You've got to do something with it, I think, whether that's talking to other people like you're doing or whether it's actually finding ways to, confront these things. So I think that's an important part of it. It can't just be awareness. It has to have some kind of action involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the purpose of life is to become the most realized version of yourself, to live a life of joy and to live a life of kindness.
Yeah.
But for me, at least, to do that, I need to engage with these issues. That's what that looks like for me. And it can go too far, and you don't want to be the guy who can't talk about anything else, or the guy who can't sit down and have a nice meal with his family or his friends, or who can't, enjoy the beautiful things about the world. Like, you need those things because that's also an important part of a human life. And also in my experience, I find that that's what lets me keep going. If I can go be with my family, have a good meal, have a good time, if I can go down to the ocean, be in the water and, appreciate the world, that recharges me to then go and think about some of these issues, try and in my small way do something about it.
Yeah. I think that's the key is there to it's nice to be a part of these sorts of movements, but for you to hold your, I guess, peace and happiness in the result of what happens, that's where I think the issue lies.
Yeah.
If you know in your heart you're doing the right thing and you're speaking about the right things and that's a part of you and that's who you are, great. But if you require the result, if you require the success in a business, if you require to win the medal, if you require to have $1 million to be happy, then you're constantly chasing this never-ending loop of suffering.
Yeah.
Whereas if you enjoy, like, hey, I enjoy spreading awareness around this and trying to fight this issue or whatever, that's a very different way of life. As opposed, as I see with my own life, people, if I meet a listener out in the wild, they think all I want to do is talk about these issues. I'm very the opposite in life. Like, I just have a chat, have a yarn. Like, how good was this? How's the footy? Like, that's me. And I don't mind having a couple of those chats. Curious chats are always fun. I like it. But that's what this is for me. The podcast. Yeah. And I broadly try to let go of it and just be a present dad and whatnot. But, then you fall into traps of social media and then it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? So
it is, I think as well, like, it is very arrogant to think that you can shape the world to your own wishes and desires. Like, to think that I'm going to get this outcome, whether it's in, an issue you care about or whether it's in business or whether it's even in your personal life. Like, that's not how life works, You've just got to be aligned with your I don't know how to really describe it, but with your spirit or with your conscience or with your calling. Yeah. And I think a lot of things in our world do mess with that. And I think that's a problem.
Like, it's distraction after distraction. Yeah. And potentially, and this is what I was moving towards, like things like protests. Are we falling for traps of division? Are we falling for this, like, I feel like I'm having an impact because I'm at this protest, but it doesn't change anything?
I think we can, and I think that there's certain types of protests that have just been done over and over again and haven't worked, and it depends on different situations and whatnot. So I think we've got to be looking for the things that do work.
Is it a collective non-compliance for things that are just very, visibly absurd.
I think ultimately it's just getting a critical mass of people to not comply, and you see how that's how dictatorships fall around the world. Is that eventually people get so fed up that the ruling power becomes laughable, and people just stop going along with it. Like that's where it happens.
And this is the Trump idea, the Trump effect. Now, whether or not he was the answer, it doesn't matter. That's what you can see. They had been given time after time after time the same two sides of the same coin, and they wanted change. Now, whether or not you are one of these people who thinks Trump is the change or isn't, it doesn't matter. That's a very good, visible indication of where the world's at, specifically the USA.
Yeah.
They're sick of the same shit. You keep lying. You keep saying the same things. Trump has promised us this.
Yeah.
Whether he played the game or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's up for debate. But that's what they want. And that's what I see in the world, and I see that in Australia. We haven't reached that critical point yet.
No, yeah.
But there will come a point, I think, in Australia's future where we will eventually, as a collective, go, fuck, mate, enough's enough.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
We are done.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to be – I hope it's not like what we're seeing in the UK at the moment.
Yeah, I hope that in Australia, like I think we kind of talked about this last time, we've got a system that can – more fruitfully channel some of this energy in a way that is like less disruptive and destructive. Like I think there are actually like a lot of good things in our society that we want to conserve, and that's maybe like the conservative impulse in me is to say that like we've got a lot of good things at work. We don't want to just like chuck everything out and have carnage and chaos. At the same time, there are things going on that really don't work and that can have really worrying implications. And we need to address those. And my hope is that we can address them without things getting to intense a point.
Too messy, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we see, and this is the perfect example, it's playing out in the UK, and no matter what anyone thinks about immigration policies or not, this is when you don't listen to the people and what they're seeing happen played out in front of them, and when they ignore certain data and statistics because it puts them in a situation where they maybe have to go, oh, maybe we've done this wrong. This is what happens. Eventually you see almost like a violent pushback. But I truly do hope that doesn't happen in Australia. I hope we find a way before that. But as it stands, it seems like we're in this police state that just enforces more and more legislation to oppress and censor and keep silent anyone who opposes that view.
I think that's the really worrying thing, is that democratic rights have been under threat in Australia now for some time, and it's just being eroded away. Our freedom of speech is becoming less. Our freedom of press is becoming less. There are these kind of global democracy ratings, and Australia has slipped in those ratings, and Australia is traditionally a fairly compliant country. I hope that we're getting to a point now where people are actually thinking, hang on, this is not good. We don't want to comply with this. And the big corporate interests are the ones who ultimately benefit from this. And I guess that's the other part of the protest legislation, the post and boast legislation that we haven't really talked about, is that, it is, again, those big multinational companies who are taking our resources without paying royalties, who pay a slither of a tiny little bit of income tax, who barely pay any petroleum resources rent tax like they're meant to, in many instances have paid none. Those are the companies that, people might be inclined to protest against.
Yeah.
Convenient then that the WA government, which is in thrall to those companies, is shutting down freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of protest. I think it tells us something about, if you want to look at who the government is governing for, look at who benefits from their decisions. I don't think the people of Australia benefit from either of these pieces of legislation that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And big corporate interests will.
Yeah, and we can see consistently that when we raise taxes, we raise it for the population, the civilians pay, but we don't see Exxon fucking paying extra.
The tax, it's actually hard to understand how broken tax is in this country. I think, we talked about it before, but we could be the wealthiest place on earth. We could be like Qatar and Norway, where we tax these companies at really high rates. notice that the companies don't disappear from Qatar and Norway.
Yeah.
You know, they're still there because that's where the oil and gas is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's what they're
Exactly.
restricted by.
That's what their job is
Yeah.
to mine these fucking
Yeah.
resources. And
Like-
to suggest that they would be scared off by raising royalties or taxes is absurd.
Well, it happens basically everywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
We're the ones who are taken for fools by these companies. They must just sit in their boardrooms and laugh at the stupidity of the politicians and probably at the stupidity of us.
I mean, I think stupidity's a nice way to put it. I
true,
think
true.
sinister and
True.
and
Yeah.
other means are the reason. But
That is true.
we can see it playing out. Everyone's been made aware of it for the last few years specifically. Yourself, punters have really made that obvious. Corey White's been championing that idea for quite a few years as well.
True. Yeah.
Nothing happens. Nothing changes.
I think like we've got to, we're just, even though it's building, we're not at that critical mass.
No.
Like it takes a real big critical mass of people to be angry about these things for the change to actually come.
Well,
sadly.
I guess the Palestine Palestine protest and the Sydney Harbour Bridge is a perfect example. Like if you got
Yeah.
something that big happening about tax these
Yeah.
companies or
Yeah.
raise the royalties, give us our resources and put it towards our country so our cost of living crisis can change.
Yeah.
Like I was having this conversation the other day with a friend saying, my daughter, like I'm going to struggle now. I've trying to get back into the market of buying a house and all these sorts of things, and that's hard enough now. My
Yeah.
daughter is
Yeah.
not. It's not going to happen.
Nah.
Unless I gift her fucking 250,000. Well, that's not going to be worth anything then anyway. But gift her a house.
Yeah.
She's not getting a house. Our kids and our kids' certainly are not getting a house. They're not owning property. They're not owning land. And this isn't being addressed. And if anything, they're just increasing the issues that we're seeing
Yeah.
that are causing these cost of living crises. They'll blame it on the war at Russia and Ukraine. They'll blame it on anything but themselves.
Yeah.
And
I mean, also the other thing about that, blaming on the war in Russia and Ukraine, like if we were getting a good deal for our resources, that would have been a good thing for us because the prices for oil and gas went through the fucking roof.
yeah, because it was limited.
Woodside and Chevron Santos benefited.
Yeah.
If we were doing like most other fossil fuel producing states in the world, most other oil and gas producing states in the world, they like it when the cost of oil and gas goes up. It benefits them. For us, we don't like it because our own energy bills go up. And yet we're not getting anything more from these companies who are operating on our shores and taking our resources from beneath the ground. Like we've just got it. We've just got it all backwards.
And didn't I see potentially that China profited, I think it was $12 billion last year off resources, oil and gas, that they purchased off us?
Right. I don't know about China, but I know Japan are doing that. Japan are on selling our gas for a profit to
What
other
the
countries.
what
so
is-
so fucking Roger Cook stands up and he says, "We have an obligation to keep the lights on in Tokyo." That's what he said, literally word for word.
he didn't.
Literally word for word. We have an obligation to keep the lights on in Tokyo. Meanwhile, these Japanese companies have surplus gas. They're selling it over onshore, selling it overseas for a profit. It's absolutely insane. We are being taken for a ride.
Our resources.
Our resources. Japan
And the reason-
Japan is getting more for our resources than we are.
And they're trying to move to this net zero because of climate change, presumably. Well, no, that's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Yet they're still selling off these resources to other companies that are, one, using that same resource and putting
Yeah.
it into the same atmosphere
Yeah.
and polluting the same earth, and then they're not profiting off it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the great contradiction at the heart of Australian Labor and WA Labor is that they say that they're acting on climate change while they're also facilitating this multi-billion-dollar gas industry. Like, no matter what you think about climate change, there is a contradiction there.
Correct.
Between what they're saying.
It doesn't matter what your thoughts on climate
Yeah.
change are. That's
Yeah.
what they're saying it is, and then they're just doing the exact opposite.
Yeah,
It's absurd.
And it's because, again, they're willing to bend the knee to the corporate masters. That's what it comes back to, I think. That's more and more, that's what I kind of come to see is that, like, at the root of all of these things is big multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations who, at the end of the day, only care about one thing, maximizing profit, are going to do whatever it takes to do that. like they're designed to do that. It's not really their fault. It's the government's fault for letting them, and for being influenced by that and for allowing themselves to be influenced by that. Like our governments should be standing up for us as the people against the multinational corporations, not bending the knee to the multinational corporations and screwing over us, the people, time and time and time again. But, you know, they need to, there's some simple things they could do. Banning political donations from these industries, banning politicians from getting jobs with the industries that they make rules for, limiting the corporate lobbying. Like, they're very simple things, kind of things Punters Politics often talks about, that could be done tomorrow. But, you know, the politicians are the ones who are ultimately benefiting with these cushy jobs and whatnot. So what's the motivation for them?
So where do you see this post and boast go?
Well, yeah, I hope that I mean, I think my fear is that they're going to rush it through as quickly as they can. But I do know that there's quite a lot of other legislation that they're dealing with, including the gun legislation next week. So it may not be able to be dealt with too quickly. My hope is that there's a bit of time now for different groups across our society to say to the government, hang on, this is going to impact us. You know, I think like people like the pastoralists and graziers, the government might actually listen to. So I think if they're getting on board, that would be really, really good. So, you know, to be charitable, like the government haven't said that the purpose of this is to crack down on protesters or to crack down on freedom of speech. So if we believe them on that, maybe if these concerns are brought to them, and people say, well, hang on, we think it might do this, they might back down.
Yeah, can we rewrite that legislation to have specific areas in which you're trying to... Well,
all they need to do is have carve out... Like, I think there's a few things they could do. One is they could restrict or reduce that list of offences, like limit that.
Yeah.
But another one is to have the same way that they have an exemption for journalism, they could put in an exemption for nonviolent protest, you know? So that would be really easy.
Were you guys recently, were you arrested or shut down for non-violent protests against Woodside? What was that happening?
Various things. I've got a long history with Woodside. They're my number one op.
Yeah.
I was arrested recently the CEO of Woodside has a restraining order against me, which is bullshit. So I've actually probably got to be careful how I talk about it.
Yeah, are you allowed to say anything?
Yeah, I was wrongfully arrested for breaching the restraining order, hauled into the police station. The police came to my house, pulled me from my bed, put me in handcuffs, took me to the police station, held me there for a few hours in the cell, eventually took me into the interview room, showed me the footage of the person who was supposedly within 100 metres of Woodside facilities, not where this individual was.
Yes.
This was in the Pilbara,
Yeah.
not in Perth. But there was CCTV they had of someone who was within 100 metres of Woodside facilities. I said to them, sorry guys, that's not me.
Yeah.
And I actually knew who it was. Weirdly,
Yeah.
it was a mate of mine who I knew.
Yeah.
And I said, that's my mate Tim. Give him a call. He'll come in.
Yeah.
He came in. He was like, yeah, that's me. They let me go. So that was my most recent...
Mate, if this is happening though, you are playing with some powerful people. Does it?
Yeah, I mean,
scare you a
it's
bit?
actually pretty funny because a few days before this happened, I had a weed gummy, and I was just a little bit. I was getting a little bit paranoid. Also, I thought I was standing in the bathroom, looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I just was standing in the bathroom, and I thought to myself, you've got to be careful. You've got some powerful enemies. You've got to be careful.
Yes.
And then I just thought to myself, nah, you're stoned.
Yeah.
Shut up. You're being paranoid.
Well.
And then 3 days later, the cops are knocking on my door
Yeah.
in the morning. So maybe I was right. I mean, look, it does worry me a little bit, but also it kind of reassures me a little bit.
That you're on the right.
That they wouldn't be wasting their time on me if they didn't think that what I was doing was
having an impact.
having some kind of impact, or at least like breaking down their narrative. Their narrative is we're really good for WA. WA needs us. We provide heaps of jobs. You'd be screwed without us.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is breaking down that narrative. By the way, I found out this week, Fiona Stanley Hospital employs more people than Woodside does in WA.
Wow.
Woodside
Well, there you
put
go.
all these billboards everywhere about, oh, we're good for jobs.
Yeah.
they employ, I think, almost 4,000 people.
Yeah.
Those 4,000 people, like, it's good that they've got jobs, but there are other industries where those jobs could go that don't also involve the exploitation of our resources without us profiting from them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Woodside. What did they profit last year? Do you know?
Oh, billions. Yeah, don't know. I mean, I know that the CEO, her salary is about $8 million a year.
Okay.
Personally.
Ridiculous. So let's suggest that it was, was it 1 billion?
I don't know because I'm not sure. But
if it's a billion, give us 200 million.
They make billions. They make billions,
and they're not. Yeah, cool. Good for jobs. Good for jobs. You made $1 billion profit, $200 million extra back to it, and we're just throwing a figure out there. Let's pay $200 million extra tax.
Yeah,
instead of zero or whatever they pay.
Yeah, they do pay some tax, but it's minimal. I mean, the royalties they pay, like, iron ore industry makes up a big chunk of the WA budget. I think it's like 20-30% or something.
Mm-hmm.
The amount that the gas from Woodside's Northwest Shelf contributes has been going down, down and down and down, because they've been negotiated all these different rules with the PRRT, which are meant to replace royalties, but that hasn't really worked. Companies are paying less than the government expected under the PRRT. Like, it's all a kind of complicated picture. But I think that if you look at it, like, our tax rate on these companies, if you look at the profit they make here, I think it turns out to be about 10%. In Norway, it's like 70%.
Yeah.
If you look at the royalties, I think the recent extension to the Northwest Shelf that was given, the research from the Australia Institute said that could be up to $250 billion of gas that is given away without royalties. So because the royalty arrangements have finished, they've moved to this other scheme. The other scheme is not working.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like daylight robbery basically. Like, and they'll say, well, we do contribute this, and it's like, yeah, you do contribute a little bit, but like it's nowhere near the amount of. If you look at it proportionally, it's less than you and I are paying in income tax.
Yeah.
Like it's
and environmentally, is it what's happening there? Do we know the impacts it's having? Because it's quite a key area.
Yeah. So I mean, there's layers to this. Like, there's the environmental impacts of the processing on the Murujuga rock art, which is in the area where it is processed. That's had a lot of media attention lately. Mm-hmm. There was a big report paid for by the government and Woodside, which found that there was not damage, and then there were some independent scientists, including the world professor of rock art at UWA, Benjamin Smith. He tore up the summary of the report on the steps of Parliament. I don't know if you saw the clip. It was pretty viral on social media. It was a cool little clip. But there are a bunch of independent scientists who said, hang on a second, this summary has been rewritten by the government. So there's been a lot of controversy there. There's fears that it is degrading that rock art, which is like 40,000 years old, just been given World Heritage listing. You've got this big industrial park in the middle of it. So there are those concerns. There are also concerns about the extraction of the gas, which Woodside want to drill at the Browse Basin off the Kimberley coast at a place called Scott Reef. It's like the biggest reef structure in the Southern Hemisphere or something like that.
Wow.
Pygmy blue whales, sea turtles, etc. So there's worries about the seismic blasting there, about the impacts of the drilling, about the impacts of a possible oil spill. So yeah, there are those concerns as well. And I mean, then there's obviously the climate change concerns. Like, there's going to be different views out there about that. I think, as I said to you last time, climate change is something that does concern me, and I do think that, again, it's an example of big corporate interests being allowed to get away with whatever they want and creating these risks for the rest of us. And I think that's the way to look at it, because I think sometimes these discussions get like pushed to, your personal carbon footprint or whatever. I don't think that's the way to look at it. And by the way, that term carbon footprint was invented by BP oil company. They were the ones who kind of first started trying to get that going. So I think if we look at the climate issues and the environmental issues, we don't need to be apocalyptic about it. No. We can sort it out. It's okay. We can do it in a way that we're going to have people having good lives. But what's stopping that is these big multinational companies who are making billions of dollars of profit. They're the ones, again, who are benefiting. they're the ones who have known about this problem for decades and decades and decades. Like it's like the 1970s, ExxonMobil had internally, they realized that climate change was a thing. And that was when they started planning to spin around it and to downplay it and to, question the scientific research that was coming out. So there's a long history of these companies trying to suppress what we knew about climate change.
Well, even just their environmental impacts that we're having, because even if you're one of these people who don't believe that climate change is human caused, it doesn't mean we don't care about environmental causes. And like a perfect example is down in South Australia at the moment. I'm not fully across the details, but again, similar sort of the algal bloom that I was in reference. Yeah. An algal bloom in South Australia that's killing, like I think they've limited it to like a few thousand marine life, when realistically there's all sorts of impacts in regards to plankton and coral reefs and whatnot, but it's upwards of millions of animals and marine life. I would anticipate is what I've been hearing as well.
Yeah,
but
the photos are horrific.
And their instant assertion is it's climate change.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How?
Yeah.
But secondly, you've completely ignored the fact that there's 9 desalination plants that are leaning into the same area, and what impact human intervention and human caused environmental chaos basically has had on that area. Yeah. You've just assumed it's climate change.
I think, we have to be so careful, right? Because we actually don't understand so much about the environment. So we really need to really be careful about what we're doing. I mean, I do know that like marine heat waves have become more and more common, and that can be related to the algal blooms, but I'm sure there's multiple factors going on.
Yeah.
I spent a bit of time in the Pilbara. I used to live there. I go up and down a bit. I was there earlier this year when 30,000 dead fish washed up on the beach at 40 Mile Point. And that was crazy. It was like really disturbing to see.
Yeah.
There were like turtles on the beach, dolphins on the beach, fish on the beach. And they said that was related to a marine heat wave, which made sense because I remember going for a swim the day before and being like,
this
get
is
me
hot.
out of here. This is way, and it's like the Pilbara in summer. So it was like, 45 degrees. And in the water, it's like, I've never experienced anything like that.
Like a bath.
I think that, we don't understand the impacts of everything that we're doing in the oceans. Marine heat waves are a problem and they are getting worse. There's likely other things that are being done as well. Seismic blasting is something that's done for various purposes, which is a concern.
There's so many things going on there, but for them to just blanket statement climate change, I
they
ignorant.
don't know, right? They need to do the research and work out what's going on. Yeah.
So, but again, I want to do a full episode specifically just on climate and environmental impacts and whatnot, because that would be. It's pretty interesting to me because as a bit of a hippie activist, I just want a beautiful planet.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to go down to my local beach and maybe we're a bit spoilt here in Perth with arguably the best beaches in the world, like just clear turquoise blue everywhere you look. And that's why when I see what's happening in my local beach and I go 10 kilometres down the road and it's completely clear.
Yeah. I mean, the ocean reef stuff is just terrible. I remember when they were proposing that, talking to some of the community members there were just distraught by what was planned.
You should see the sludge.
Yeah.
It's like a brown sludge.
Yeah.
And you literally go 10 kilometres down the coast.
Yeah.
Same wind patterns.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. And it is clear turquoise blue. And you're like, this is something you are ignoring. But anyway.
I think just one more thing on that is that, actually, it's not just hippies and activists who care about the environment in WA. We actually all love it. We love swimming, we love boating, we love fishing, we love camping. I do think that there's been a very successful attempt to paint caring about the environment as like a niche concern.
Yeah.
And become this culture war issue.
Yeah.
And that's just got all this baggage with it. I think a lot of that has come from these big resources companies. But
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, we all care about the place we love, the place we live, the place we live and love, the place where we raise our kids.
I was talking to a mate yesterday, and like when we were younger, you get taken to Kings Park. You're like, oh, I don't give a fuck about this. I want to take me to bowling or something like that. But now I'm like, Scotty, let's go to Kings Park. Let's have a look. Look at this beautiful. Look at the flowers. Look at the forest. Like that's what. And so you do get an appreciation as you get older, and you don't have to be you don't have to be a hippie activist. You just have to be someone who cares about a beautiful environment and
just wants to be somewhere nice,
clear air, and it's like I mean, even recently, I've been looking around, and this even in last summer, I really visibly noticed like a grey haze. Very it's almost unseeable.
Yeah.
But it was there. And I remember pointing it out to my daughter and a couple of her younger friends. And I was like, you guys see that, like, that haze?
Yeah.
And this is not a one-off thing. It wasn't a one day. It was like through the whole, we weren't burning off more. There wasn't like.
Yeah. I mean, air pollution is getting worse and worse all around the world, like year on year, basically. I think it actually might have started to swing back a little bit recently. I'm not sure. But air pollution is a massive problem. Like millions of people die around the world every year just from air pollution alone. And it's something that is everywhere.
Yeah. But, mate, aside from that, it's been a great chat. Anything last thing you want to say about the post and boast or the social media ban?
Oh, I just think the post and boast stuff needs to be out there. So if you're listening to this and what we've said concerns you, like share it on social media, share it with your friends, talk to any organisations that you're a part of who might be impacted by this. And I think it's all kinds of people. It's street artists, it's protesters of all stripes. You don't even have to be a protester. You just have to have, like, at some point seen a protester and been like, good on them. Yeah. You know, those are the people who this may affect. So if that's you, share it, get it out there, talk to people in your lives about it, talk to any groups you're a part of, contact the Attorney General, Tony Booty. And I would love to see a big protest on the steps of Parliament about this one. I reckon that could be quite impactful. Yeah.
Mate, nailed another incredible episode.
Thanks for having me. Always a good time. Yeah.
Anything you want to plug, actually?
I'm on Big State at _ Big State _ I think. I don't know. Type in Big State, you'll find it. I'm looking to get some kind of Substack thing going soon, but stay tuned. Haven't quite worked that out yet, but yeah.
Perfect.
That's where you'll find me.